Welcome everybody to the Side Hustle Sports podcast. Now, this is an idea that has been rattling around in my brain for quite some time. I wanted to do a handball podcast. There's not necessarily a big enough audience for that on a consistent basis. I wanted to do a korfball podcast, but the same problem. Tag rugby, all those sort of things. Well, what if we make a podcast that basically gives a shining light each episode to one of those sports? The first one's going to be handball today, as you can probably guess in the description below. And then we've got potentially, hopefully, anyway, korfball next week, tag rugby, ultimate frisbee, and all that sort of thing. It's all to come, and I'm really excited to get involved with it. Speaking of which, though, I'm not necessarily fully involved with all the different sports that I want to cover. I know they're fantastic. I know they're brilliant. However, I'm not actually involved with the community. Therefore, I might not have the contacts. So if you guys out there want a podcast that shows off your sport, well, I need someone to talk to about it. So please do comment below, tag some people if they want to be on the podcast, or send it to them. Give me an email. Just say a random word. Just say dodgeball in the comments. That'll be good enough for me. I will crack on with it, and I will try and find someone to chat to. Or if there's a story, do send me a more in-depth sort of message about it. Now, as I said, this is episode 1. We are going to be focusing on handball. Towards the end of the episode, we'll be giving the full rundown, the hustle highlights, as I like to call it, about what the results have been over the last couple of weeks, what it means for the tables, then therefore what it means for the EHA Final Four, and the British Handball Super Cup and all that sort of thing. But we'll get there. The biggest story that's happened over the last couple of weeks, though, is to do with the GB men's squad. Now, they made history in becoming the most successful, I think, GB men's team that has ever been. I haven't been corrected on that yet in the interviews I've done, so I'm guessing I'm correct, because they won the Emerging Nations tournament the other week. Now, this was the 6th iteration, or the 5th iteration, I should say, actually, of the Emerging Nations. GB have come 11th, 9th, 5th, 4th before, so we were progressing in the right direction, but no one expected us to go to Bulgaria, meet them in the final, and then take home the victory. But that is exactly what happened. I was absolutely buzzing for it. The handball community as a whole in Britain was unbelievable. The support that was being pouring out on social media and everything like that towards these teams and these players has been spectacular. I wanted to catch up with Ricardo Vasconcelos, the head coach for GB men's team, so we could have a chat and see what his perspective was on not only the final and the tournament, but what led him up to that point. Bit of London 2012 in there as well to sort of like maybe squash some of the controversy and some of the concerns that some people had that maybe London 2012's legacy was slightly lost and that we're only just picking up where we should have been about 10 years ago, which I don't think is the case, and neither does Ricardo, so that's quite nice to know. And then what happens afterwards? What's the next step for GB, Ricardo, and the players that are involved as well? So without further ado, let's crack on with the interview. We'll bring all the up-to-date fixtures and results after this one. So yeah, enjoy the interview with myself and Ricardo. So this week, the hustle spotlight is going to be shone upon Ricardo, and I believe I'm going to say this probably horrendously. Ricardo Vasconcelos.
You said it brilliantly, Jack. Hi.
That's the first time ever. I wish I could do that in commentary. Right, Ricardo, obviously GB men's coach, have been for quite some time now. You're coming off the back of an Emerging Nations win, which makes you one of, if not the most successful GB teams in history, especially on the men's side. How does that feel after a couple of weeks of it sinking in?
Feels brilliant, overwhelming. Toned with the huge responsibility of keeping the quality and the work that has been developed so far and keeping the impact that we hope we're having in this youth generation of players, that it's growing, being much more aware of the sport, but also understanding that this is just one mere step in the journey that we've started and that we wanted to finish much higher than we've already done. But it's a very important step, and we shouldn't shy away from the fact. And we are extremely happy that we have achieved this 2 years before the plan we had set, because we did plan a long term, and that's how how we operate within the sphere of funding and sports and so on. And we had a top one winning the Emerging Nations in 2 years' time. So we are very happy that we were able to achieve that earlier than expected.
Yeah, for people's reference beforehand, you've been part of the Emerging Nations ever since it emerged, sort of thing. And you and Bulgaria had been as well. But you'd previously finished 9th, 11th, 4th, 5th, and now first. So it was forever going in the right direction. But like you said, 2 years ahead of schedule, one emerging nations ahead of schedule, shall we say. Where did that difference come from? What's different about this year compared to maybe the previous four iterations?
Yeah, so I think we were ready to play for this, to achieve and to play for the final in the previous edition. But the structure meant that the structure of the competition meant that we were out of the fight for the final on the first game after losing against Cuba, which was a weird way of organizing a competition, because we believe the final was played on day one. But it was good for us because we shift our focus to what we wanted to achieve. We wouldn't want to be in the same position again, and depending on a schedule to be able to reach the final. We wanted to take control of that scenario, and we worked really hard to be here. And I think the fact that we were so close and we felt that we could have done it before meant that we worked much more with this target in hand, despite having the goal to achieve it in 2 years' time. We went into this competition with a clear goal of winning, rather than just trying to better our last participation. And I think that, as you said, and quite rightly so, the evolution we've had throughout the competitions, and that we felt throughout the competitions, starting in 2017, when I was an interim coach also in Bulgaria, to now, has been massive, and it has been a reflection of how the sport has evolved overall within our nation, and also how our players, who started by being 99% players who were playing in England and Scotland, to now having the reverse for players playing abroad in some good leagues. So it's a really good story of really strong sports development, I would say.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned there about how people playing abroad and stuff like that. That doesn't mean we've nabbed players from abroad with English heritage or British heritage, I should say, is it? It's more of a case of we've raised players up to a standard now where they can go abroad and they can go to Portugal and Germany and other places like that and perform at their levels, and then hopefully bring that sort of experience and knowledge back to help the national team, and also hopefully in England in a couple of years' time, or Scotland and
Absolutely,
stuff.
absolutely. It's aspirational because it provides current athletes that are in the talent pathway with an exit route, with a light at the end of the tunnel. They can see, contrary to what happened in other contexts, that we are not going out, as you said, and trying to just nab players who have passport for this or that reason. There's also a high percentage of players who were born and bred in this country and in Scotland, within our structure, our competitions, our talent pathway, that are good enough to go abroad and play there and become even better, and then come back and give back to the sport that afforded those opportunities. And that is the case. I don't think I will be releasing any secret I shouldn't if I said that on the back of this result, I've been personally contacted by multiple clubs and coaches inquiring about players that were there, and other players that might be of interest that were not able
Wow.
to be selected. So it's that is the one of the byproducts of this success, possibly one of the most important byproducts of this success. It's both inspiring young athletes, but also opening doors for more athletes to go and deliver and practice and develop handball in a better context.
That's amazing, isn't it? Really, the whole host of players putting their ability in the spotlight, and one player that did put their ability in the spotlight is a player who you know very well, obviously Portuguese descent, or he came from Portugal before he moved to England, in Pereira, and he was a bit of a shining light. I mean, the IHF media loved him, but he was sporting at a young age, and then he moved to England, and then rekindled his love for handball over here. And you helped him develop that, and now he's playing abroad and playing in the biggest stages of the emerging nations and everything like that. How proud is it for you to have players like that who come from abroad with obviously a great talent and great nurturing up until you get your hands on them, but also the players like, I use Ollie Tyler, for instance, your captain, who was born, raised on handball in England and started when he was about 13, and now he's the captain for one of the most successful teams. How proud are you to have both of those in your arsenal?
I'm very proud. I think it shows how diverse and inclusive we can be as a sport, and how different people from different backgrounds can succeed if they put the effort and time. I'm very lucky to have the players I have, and the success, it's all down to them. I'm just an enabler of their creativity, who tries to support their development more than anything else. I'm just very lucky to have players like Francisco and Ollie, who's a testament of what a player should be and what a captain should be. Someone who should be as an example for any athlete that started his career in England or Scotland. Someone that started his journey as an athlete very close to you, Jack, in your past in handball with Diva, and
Big
that
up.
has developed and worked really hard through the ranks, and that has left England to play abroad just this year. Um, After having so many years of fighting and working and developing through the ranks here. So it's a joy to see how and a testament to his character and his family. And then Francisco, who started playing handball in Portugal, who came to England when he was 13 or 14, who had all the dreams of the world in front of him. And who worked and still works really hard to achieve what he has achieved, and he has the right mental attitude, the right mindset to be able to succeed. So I'm very lucky, but those are just two examples of a much wider pool of athletes that I've got the pleasure to work with and the pleasure to learn from as well. So I'm extremely lucky in that respect.
You mentioned that you had this sort of long-term plan. I don't know how much you can reveal of that, in terms of the nitty gritty. I'm sure it's probably public knowledge anyway, because to get the funding and stuff like that. But how far back does that extend? When was that long-term plan sort of implemented? Because we mentioned last time we chatted about the impact of London 2012 and how maybe in some people's eyes the handball hadn't progressed to the level of what it was sort of they thought it should be, and all of a sudden it's accelerated, or feels like it's accelerated over the past sort of 6 years. Is that an unfair assessment? Because you can't have the acceleration without that build-up, surely.
Of course not. And I think we've mentioned this in the past. I think London 2012, I don't like the word legacy, but I think there is there is a real legacy from London 2012, and just in the fact that, for example, I'm here, and my role developed through the awareness that London 2012 raised on the sport and the necessity to come and educate and bring expertise from other areas to educate teachers and develop the sport and so on. Also, we can't forget that the sport existed prior to 2012, and there's a lot of people who gave so much throughout the years, a lot of volunteers to handball that still do today, that existed prior to 2012 even being on the plans. And some of the players that I have today were raised and educated in handball from that people. So of course it's there is a progression that it's more visible in the last 5 or 6 years. You are correct. But it is heavily impacted by the past. It's grounded on really good work from really solid people who love the sport as much as we do now, and who did it through thick and thin and through lots of struggles and difficulties without any kind of awareness. So my kudos to them, and we are now reaping some of those of the fruits of what they've saw in their time. But you are correct. The last 5 or 6 years show a huge development, and show a huge development that is inherently connected to the amount of support that UK Sport and Sport England and Sport Scotland deliver to our sport, alongside EHF and IHF, and the fact that we are able through that to become more professional. So we spend more time with the players, we go and do camps abroad more often, we have all the support that we require around psychology, nutrition. We have a really good setup around video analysis and how we impact our player development through that. And that cascades down to the age groups and then to the talent pathways we have been developing massively as well. So it's a holistic development, I would say, that started before the Olympics, was really, really pushed forward in terms of awareness with the Olympics. And then with the support of the entities I've mentioned, it's now flying. And just going back to your question, the plan is to slowly but steadily develop to the point of that we start qualifying to major competitions.
That's that. Don't worry, that is the last of the controversial questions. There is only one in there, but I thought somebody would ask it out there. I thought I got to have it answered. You mentioned about all those sort of different, the video analysis, the psychologists, the better physios, and all that sort of thing. Is that what helps you progress against a team like Bulgaria, who you'd played in the final and beat, but you'd played earlier in the round and had lost to quite heavily as well, I might say, a 35-22, to turn that around to knowing you have to go against that team, the only team you've lost against the entire competition, in the final, but come over that hurdle. Is that a testament to those things you've been putting in place, the video analysis and the psychology and everything else?
Absolutely, 100%. I don't think that let me start by saying that I don't think the result in the group stages reflects the difference on the teams. We've played them in January. We drew when we qualified for the round two in Bulgaria, and then obviously this group stage game, which in practical terms was not necessary for us to qualify for the semifinals, was grounded in a completely different basis to the players. And that resulted in the outcome that you've just mentioned, which it's something that we've learned from, and through the video analysis, particularly, and around and the conversations around with the players and their own self discovery, we came back with a plan that supported our result in the final. I think we were not mentally prepared for the level of intensity that Bulgaria brought to the game at the group stage. They brought that game on the back of the game we had won in January, so we could clearly see they had a point to prove. And then we did the same. So we reversed that. We used the group stage game, and the result was completely fair, and they were so much better in that game. But we used that to learn, to do some video analysis, and to prepare a good plan that then came to fruition in the final. And I feel we were really good tactically and technically, and we were able to nullify their strengths and allow our players to shine better through all that support that you've just mentioned and all that work that goes on in the background.
So obviously, we just talked about the nation, the emerging nations. You've also got, for the second time in a row, a European qualifier phase 2 to go and do. We played it. Well, you played it at Kosovo. I was there, but it was a great event to be a part of. What's the buzz like going into the second one? Because obviously the result might not have been what you wanted. Did you think that maybe the occasion got to the players a little bit, and maybe they're sort of in there? But and it's unfair to the players to probably say that. But towards the end of the game, it was a little bit like they were just trying to give something for the crowd. Do you think the next time there's going to be something that's a bit more calm about the players and the more of a game plan to go in and actually take that victory?
I think so. I think it's really hard to speak about the outcome when we have no idea who we might be facing, right? So I can't really promise that we're going to come out with a victory. What I know is that we've learned from the experience, particularly, and it's very fair what you said around the emotional control that we missed against Kosovo. For the reasons you've named as well, and we've spoken at the time, and when we were together, the fact that we hadn't played a home game for ages, particularly a home game with that level of fans
It was
surrounding
amazing.
us. It was incredible to be part of. But at the same time, that brought a bit of extra emotional pressure to the players, and the control that we were able to instill on them and develop with them was not at par, because it was a first time for us as well. Sometimes we forget that, and we think the coaches have done everything. No, a lot of this process is the first time for me and my team as well, and we are learning as we go. So I think we will be better prepared to tackle those situations. I think we are extremely keen in understanding who we're going to play against. We are extremely motivated to show the development we've been achieving so far, because we believe we are a better team now than we were when we played Kosovo, and we believe on court, technically, tactically, we're going to be able to, and emotionally, we're going to be able to deliver a better product in terms of how we're going to play the game, and how, the fight we're going to give to the opposition. But yes, I agree that Kosovo was a mark in our development, and that's the goal, is to have more of those moments to be able to lead to a successful progress into big competitions in the future.
Yeah, well, you can't learn from them unless you do them the first time, can you, at the end of
Exactly.
the day? So, what's the sort of future look like that? You said about the long-term plan. I'm guessing that's changed slightly, but from you and your team's perspective as well, as GB as a whole, are we hoping for a number of more years out of you yet, Ricardo, into the next cycle of that sort of long-term plan and development? Because obviously, as we mentioned, it's been so good so far.
Yeah. Thank you. I think in terms of Great Britain, we are in a very, very good place. Both the home nations and then BAJ as a whole. have been just and received extremely good news from Sport England and UK Sport around funding for the next cycle. And I believe we have a solid plan moving forward. And we're going to be able to deliver. Well, we've delivered some of it already, but we're going to be able to progress further because of that level of support. On my team specifically, on the GB men's, we're going to obviously play the World Championship qualifiers in November, which we hope to do better than we've done the last time that we faced Finland. And then, as we've been speaking, the round 2 qualification in January, where we also hope to do better and improve as a team and focus more on the process than on the outcome at this stage still, but certainly starting to look a little bit more to the outcome is the goal. On a personal level, I don't know, my contract finishes in 2027. I'm very happy. I feel like I am having an impact, which is something I've always said that would dictate my time here. I'm not stuck into the role, and I would stay within this role until one of two things happened. I feel I'm not having an impact in the team, or the board decides that it's time to bring someone with a different vision. My contract finishes in 2027. A lot can happen between now and then. I'm very happy. If I had to make a decision today, I would like to carry on. But we'll see what the board thinks by then, and also how my context is and how the things are. But it's a very exciting moment to be part of handball in Great Britain, in England, and in Scotland. So I don't think I'm going to lose love for it in the next 2 years. I don't think that.
Well, if the board vote you out, I think there'll be riots in the streets, Ricardo, because it's been absolutely brilliant to watch you guys progress in the way that you have, and it looks like it's not slowing down. But of course, obviously, there's the women's stuff as well, which looks like it's only going steps forwards, and Mark Hawkins involved, as you know very well, another fantastic brain behind the whole operation. So, yeah, hopefully we'll have a chat to him one day on the podcast as well. But thank you very much for coming in and having a chat. I don't want to take up your entire lunch hour. So, Ricardo, brilliant to have you along. Thank you so much for coming on the Side Hustle Sports podcast.
Thank you, Jack. Anytime, and keep going. I hope the project goes well. This is amazing, and we need more projects like this. And I'm really happy to support in whichever way I can. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much to Ricardo for that. It was fascinating to have a chat with him. And as I said, actually, we had a chat a couple of days ago. The recording didn't quite go as well as we wanted it to. There was a few connection issues, didn't sound as crisp. He was actually in a car in Loughborough giving a speech, I think, or delivering some kind of information to other British handball people. So he was kind enough to come back and do the interview again. We actually had a couple of different answers, but one of the things that I found most fascinating out of it was the development of the players here in England who have sort of, grown up and bred on handball in England, who have now gone over to do amazing stuff over in the continent and over in Europe, where, of course, it is much bigger. The quality is much higher day to day. Now, that isn't something that's necessarily brand new. I mean, it's been happening since way before London 2012. But it is a case of, it's nice to see that the majority of the teams, and in the women's side as well, of course, in Mark Hawkins' squad in the GB women's, are now playing abroad and are getting scouted. It's fascinating to hear that even some people are approaching Ricardo to try and grab those players out of different teams and seeing if they can fit into their systems and stuff like that in sort of different countries, which is amazing. And hopefully one day we'll obviously get all that information back by players returning and offering coaching roles and things like that, and sort of dispatching their knowledge onto other people, because that is how we're going to grow as a country in handball, and I'm really excited about that. Anyway, enough about that. The emerging nations were absolutely fantastic, but what's going on the more local scale of handball? What's going on in the competitions? Mainly the Premier League in the north and the Premier League in the south, for both the men's and the women's. Well, we're going to give you the hustle highlights to try and give you a bit of an understanding of maybe who's going into the end of the season as champions in their respective divisions, who's going to be going into the EHA Final Fours, and keep in mind that is the top two from each league will be going into the Final Fours to see who will come out on top as the national champions. Here's the pre-recording of that bit. It's the Handball Hustle update, and it is absolutely crucial to make you aware that not every single game has actually even been played at the end of this season. and not all of them have been put on the website, even the ones that have been played. So we'll try and give you a bit of an update through the course of this. We're going to start with the Northern Men's Premier Division, where I'm pretty sure everything has been logged and accounted for. North East Manchester Hawks will complete their unbeaten season after beating Birmingham 29-24 last weekend. I think potentially even yesterday from the time this is recording. Loughborough finished second, which means that North East Manchester Hawks and Loughborough will go into the final four. Hawks have obviously been there, done that plenty of times before. I think this may well be Loughborough's one of their maiden voyages into the final four. So it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with that pressure. Nottingham are in third. Birmingham did actually finish on the same amount of points as Nottingham, but Nottingham had a far superior goal advantage, meaning that they finished in fourth and safe, to be fair, to fight another season. Liverpool and Trafford are in 5th and 6th respectively, meaning they will both feature in the playoffs against second division champions York, which I play for, which I'm very excited for, and potentially Liverpool's second team or Sheffield. Those are the two favourites to get that runner-up spot in, well, our division. In the Northern Women's Premier League, it gets a little bit more difficult to explain to you. Loughborough, this is the easy bit. Loughborough won at a canter. They got 30 points, played 10 games. That means they won every single game going. They go into the Final Four, absolutely leaps ahead of anybody else in the Northern Premier League. So big congratulations to Loughborough for that massive achievement. And, fingers crossed you carry it on into the Final Four. However, every other position was up for grabs, so I do apologise if I stumble over this a little bit. Nottingham currently second on the EHA website as they've played every single one of their games. However, 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th all had a game to play. Now I know that Trafford versus Liverpool, they've drawn each other in the Cup, and the Cup is a more pressing tie, so they've had to play that first before they play the league game. I have messaged Liverpool to see when that league game will take place, but we're not entirely sure yet. That means Loughborough, who are only 1 point behind Nottingham, Loughborough in third. Trafford are only 1 point behind Nottingham. Trafford in third, Nottingham in second. That could all change. The goal difference means that Trafford will realistically have to draw or beat Liverpool, but Liverpool are down in 5th at the moment, so that could possibly do it. North East Manchester Hawks played Birmingham Bisons. They did win, did Manchester Hawks, which put them on level points with Nottingham, but with a significantly less goal difference. So the best that North East Manchester Hawks are going to ask for are pretty much 3rd place. They're not going to make it into the final 4 runnings. But that final 4 running could be Nottingham, who currently sit there, or Trafford, depending how Trafford's game against Liverpool goes. Speaking of the game against Liverpool, well, Liverpool are currently in 5th position. Their goal difference is slightly better than North East Manchester Hawks. So if Liverpool go and beat Trafford, they could drop out of this sort of bottom 2 danger zone. However, it's all up in the air. We can't really say who's going to be in it or out of it in terms of those penultimate spots, 2nd and 5th. However, we do know that Birmingham Bisons are going to have to go and play in a playoff position to maintain their position in the Northern Women's Premier Division. That probably didn't make sense. But we're going to roll with that anyway, because this is about my 5th take of doing this, and I think that's probably the one that makes the most sense. In the Men's Southern Premiership Division, we saw Oxford University take the title in what, I'll be honest, is a complete surprise for me. Normally, it's London GD, it's Olympia, it's West London Eagles down in the south. However, London GD came in 2nd place. That means Oxford University took the title for what I think is their maiden title, actually. GD did secure 2nd place, and there was a bit of a risk going into the final day of the season because they had to play Islington, who were 3rd, but GD came out on top, 35-29, to take that final 4 spot. Islington remained 3rd despite losing the game, with Olympia safe in 4th. The bottom 2 are Chelsea and Carshalton. They're going to have to play Bristol and West London Eagles, who I'll be honest, I didn't actually know West London Eagles had even dropped out of the Premiership division. The Southern Women's Premier League saw that the familiar 2 at the top, however, it was West London Eagles ahead of Olympia this time, which means the powers potentially flipped. When we were covering it, it was definitely Olympia on top compared to West London Eagles, but by the looks of this table, that may well have turned. They are both going to go into the final 4. Let's see who comes out on top of that one. It's going to be really exciting. London GD and Northampton finish in 3rd and 4th, with Islington and Chelsea having the unfortunate duty of having to go and play in those playoffs against West London Eagles' 2nd team and Oxford University. I mentioned Oxford before in the Men's Southern Premier League. They wanted a little bit of become a powerhouse potentially. Oxford having 2 teams in both of their respective Premier Leagues would be absolutely massive for them. So that is the EHA Premier Divisions across all 4, the Northerns, the Southerns, the men's and the women's. How's it going to turn out? We don't know. The Final 4 is about to come round. The playoffs are going to come round as well. We're hoping to keep our eyes on it and bring you all up to date with it as it occurs. It's going to be really exciting, though. Some massive stories. I mean, Loughborough finishing 10 for 10 in the women's division, I should say. In the men's, Southern Oxford University taking the title. Obviously, North East Manchester Hawks are nearly always there, but Loughborough coming in that Final 4 for once. It's got all the makings of a fantastic season finale, and we'll can't wait to bring you up to date with it. So with that being done and dusted, the hustle highlights are all finished. You now understand where everybody is basically sat in the leagues. If you want a quick breakdown of that and the videos where you don't want to scroll through all 20 minutes of me and Ricardo chatting or anything like that, then you can find them on our socials as well. Thank you very much for watching. I want to try and keep this within 20 minutes. Well, it'll be over 20 minutes now already, but within half an hour, shall we say, so we make sure that we can best grow this as quickly as possible. Maybe, hopefully, we'll get multiple people on interviews at one time. Hopefully, we might get a proper studio one day. This is the first episode. Bit of an experiment. Please do give your feedback in the comments below. Whether you want to see different sports. The next one I'm hoping will be korfball, but you might say be a passionate dodgeballer that's seen this video and you want your sport exposed as well, then that'll be absolutely fantastic to hear from everyone. Please do subscribe or follow along, and we will see you in episode 2.